Bonjour mon petit chifle, Amber here. And I am finally sitting down to talk about the books I read in January. I'm going to be very honest with you, and if you've been here for a while, this shouldn't surprise you at all. Today is February 20th. So while I should be preparing to be wrapping up my February reading, I am now going to talk to you about what I read in January and pray that I remember anything about anything. This is going to be messy, I'm warning you now. In January, I read 4 books and finished a 5th. I'm going to talk about the book I finished first, because if I don't, that's the last book that I read or finished in January. If I don't talk about it now, I'm going to forget, because I always forget audiobooks. First and foremost, I finally finished Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I've been listening to that book since December, I believe. December of like 2019, January 2020. I decided to finally read the book, listen to the book, in preparation for the most recent Little Women movie, because I've seen the one from the 90s countless times, but hadn't actually read the book. So I'm familiar with the story, but haven't actually read the book, and at the time I was trying to read more classics. I find I prefer watching adaptations of classics. Now, don't get me wrong, Little Women wasn't bad as a book. I just, one, audiobooks are kind of a struggle for me a lot of the time, because it's very easy for me to zone out and miss chunks of the book. I was more comfortable in this situation because I am familiar with the story. I know the progression of the story, I know where it goes. So it wasn't necessarily the same issue that I have with Jane Austen, where I don't really care about the story. I'm not invested, and I'm not like enjoying my time. When I was actively listening, I could, you know, follow the story, get into the story. I won't necessarily say care too much. I don't hate the I mean, I like the characters, I like the story, but I feel like it's more of a visual film thing for me. Like I love a period piece. I am obsessed with period pieces, but like it's more like a visual aesthetics type situation. Yeah, I said that right. As opposed to like literature. That being said, finally finished Little Women. I feel like I do get the whole Amy Laurie thing more. I get it now. Still don't necessarily, I don't know. I'm impartial. I don't care. But yeah, that's that. Let's move on. I don't know why whatever. So the first book that I read in January was a reread. And this is not the book, this is book 3. But I read the first series of Unfortunate Events book, The Bad Beginning. This is book 3, like I said. I haven't read this yet, but I have started my series of Unfortunate Events reread. I say reread lightly because I only got halfway through the series when I first started reading it. So half of it's to reread, the other half is finishing a series. I'm vlogging the whole experience so far. Like I said, it's only like 2 clips because I've only read book 1 and I read it in like a little over a day. A series of Unfortunate Events was like my favorite series in middle school and like early high school. I was obsessed, and so much so like rereading, or backtrack, if you don't know, this follows the 3 Baudelaire siblings, Violet, Klaus, and Sunny. Their parents have just perished. Their whole world has just perished, and the series follows them as they are passed along basically to different guardians, all while trying to avoid the dastardly Count Olaf. I mainly started rereading the series or trying to finish the series because of the Netflix adaptation. My mom was like insistent on watching it. I'm like, I don't want to watch it until I reread this, until I finish the books, particularly finish the series, not reread it, because I want to know what's happening before going into the show. So we struck a deal that I was like, look, if you want me to watch the show with you, buy me the book. So my mom's been like, for all the holidays, birthdays, reasons, excuses to get gifts, she's been rebuying, because she bought my first, what, 6 books, the series for me. I got books 3, 4, 5, and 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, and 6, whatever, for Christmas. Maybe we can convince her to get like 7 through 8 for my half birthday next month. But yeah, I don't know, I'm still holding this book. This is book 3. I still loved this book as much as I did the first time. Being older, you see just how much it seems even more twisted, especially like Count Olaf is even more twisted. And like, I'm like, bro, ew, what? I was gonna say, I also noticed a lot how much of my personality at the time I took from these books, particularly the ribbon thing, Violet's little ribbon thing, where when she's inventing or working through an idea, she'll like tie back her hair with a ribbon, and when she's not, when her hair is down, she's like wearing it like around her neck or around her wrist. And I used to do that. I used to wrap tie ribbons around my wrist or my neck, and then like when I was having an idea, I'm not an inventor, but I'd tie my hair back with a ribbon. And I think the general vibe of the story has definitely influenced, one, the type of books I read, the type of books I write. Because I look back, I'm like, oh, I was really like 10 years old reading these gloomy, depressing books. Like, yeah, I love it. Oh my god, yeah, give me more. And when I write, a lot of bad things happen to my characters. I'm continuing to work through the series. I will most likely read maybe the next 2 and 3 in March, because I can read these each in a day. It used to take me like a couple days to read through these books, but that's so cute. We love growth. Anyway, we love nostalgia. So after that, I read what, so far, we're only 2 months into the year, is like one of my favorite reads of the year. Still, this month, February, I read multiple incredible books. Like I said on Twitter, if you follow me, you would have seen it, that am I just doling out 5 stars left and right this year so far? Yes, but in the infamous words of Sheree Whitfield, who gonna check me, boo? The next book I read in February was These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, which if I had managed to read it like I wanted to last year, definitely, absolutely would have made it into my top books of 2020. These Violent Delights is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in Shanghai in 1926. It follows Juliet and Roma, Juliet, Kai or Sai, and Roma Monskov, who are the respective heirs of the 2 rival gangs in Shanghai, the Scarlet Gang and the White Flowers. These 2 are exes turned enemies. They're rivals, and this story follows them when basically a madness or a suspected monster is running rampant and destroying, basically taking down the lives in destroying Shanghai, running rampant in Shanghai. People are dying, hysteria is breaking out, and it's basically falls on their shoulders to put their bad blood, literally and figuratively, aside to work together to figure out what's going on, who's behind it, and how to stop it. And so many things. First of all, I love a retelling. Say it with me. I love a retelling. Number 2, I love Shakespeare. I don't talk about that a lot, but I grew up reading Shakespeare, studying Shakespeare. I've mentioned it before. When I was in high school 1, there was a brief time we had a Shakespeare club. I think me and my friends sort of weren't we like the founding members of the Shakespeare club? Anyway, there was a Shakespeare club. But aside from that, I was on the haiku team, and like I remember one of my main fields of study was Shakespeare. Point number 3, this takes place in the Roaring 20s, which is bittersweet. I've mentioned this also, that 2020 was supposed to be the year of my Roaring 20s party. As soon as we're allowed to congregate again, I promise I'm not gonna rest until I have that party. But this is 1920s Shanghai. This book was everything that I hoped it would be, maybe more than I hoped it would be. I flew through this. I devoured this book. I love these characters so much. I love Juliet and Roma. Juliet is something else. She is violent. She takes pride in being a Scarlet. She is, I want to call her an anti-hero, and I love that for her. I love her so much. But then we have Roma, who is our undercover soft boy, and I adore him. Like, the entire cast of characters are, it's perfect. Benedict and Marshall. We have Kathleen, who is a Virgo queen, confirmed. Just all the characters, and like I got so invested, and I just found myself so many times saying to myself, Amber, you know how the story unfolds. Why are you acting surprised by certain things going on in this story? And I'm like, shut up, okay? Let me pretend that I don't know Romeo and Juliet. But the story, the characters are so layered and complex, and I love that, how gritty the book is, how like they're both criminals. It's like the crime, it's not necessarily like, there aren't like heroics and just like these shining beacons of what's the word I'm thinking of, the clear-cut, pure intentioned characters, you know? They're criminals, and they're allowed to be criminals, and they're trying to preserve their livelihoods as criminals. And you know what? I love that for them. How many times can I say I love Romeo and Juliet? They're dynamic. I love the commentary revolving like colonialism, basically, and like gentrification and preserving your culture. And I love how Juliet kind of is struggling to, I guess, identify with a particular culture, because she spent a lot of years in the US, so she's battling, is she more American, is she more Chinese? Also the madness, what's happening, the madness. There were so many points where I had to put the book down. I'm not going to tell you what's going on, but it made me so viscerally uncomfortable, and just like thinking about it now, my body is tensing up, because it features one of my most irrational fears. But yeah, this book, I can't wait for book 2, Our Violent Ends, which is the conclusion of this duology. It's a duology that hurts my heart. I'm excited to see where it picks up, especially after the ending. Oh my god, the ending was not okay. It was not okay. But 5 out of 5 stars. I'm so glad I have like 30 copies of this book. And yeah, I love it. I love every minute of it. All right, So we go from a 5-star read to not that. Another duology. This is a conclusion to a duology I started 2019. I think I read it at the end of 2019. And I should have known because I didn't like book 1, but I was intrigued by the ending of book 1. This is how books get me. I was intrigued by the ending of book 1, so I'm like, I'm gonna pick up book 2. I found book 2, I think, on Book Outlet, back when Book Outlet was a thing. So I got The Crown's Fate by Evelyn Skye, which is the sequel and conclusion to The Crown's Game. Okay, briefly, The Crown's Game follows Nikolai and Vika, who are both enchanters in this fantastical imperial Russia. They are pit against each other in The Crown's Game, which is this, it's supposed to be this battle to the death, I believe, to become the imperial enchanter for the Tsar of Russia, which inevitably will be Pasha, who is the third main character of this series, who is also Nikolai's best friend. But there's also this love triangle story, which isn't a spoiler, it's on the flap of the first book, and this continues like is it a couple weeks, I think, after the end of the first book. I can't really say much more about that because I will give away too much about book 1. I gave this book 2 stars. There were so many points where I considered DNFing it. I'm sure you're thinking, so why didn't you? Because I just needed to know. I just needed to finish it. I needed to be able to cross it off my little list that I keep in the back of my journal that I made when I did my series I need to finish video. After reading this book, I can conclude that The Crown's Game really didn't need a sequel. It didn't need a sequel. It could have been a standalone. We could have just been left on that cliffhanger and just moved on. This did nothing for the story. I hated what Evelyn did to Nikolai's character. Nikolai was like the only character in book 1 that I vaguely cared about. In this book, that shifted to Pasha because, like I said, I hated what she did to Nikolai. Vika is still a very flat character that I don't care about. I mean, all the characters are relatively flat, but there are just some that I can tolerate more. In this book it was Pasha, in book 1 it was Nikolai. And I feel like I've said this, there's too much of nothing happening, you know? There was too much thrown that kind of never went anywhere or didn't need to be in the story. It just felt like we were circling around an actual plot instead of being in an actual plot. Like what is Renata, is that the character's name? She was pointless. Her storyline was kind of pointless. I get where it came into play at the end, but I feel like they could have done that in a different way without throwing in this character that was kind of meaningless. I guess she's not essentially because of her connection to Nikolai also, but she just felt like she was just there to be there. I feel like that whole plot point could have been done differently. It just felt like nothing was actually happening. Like I said, the plot was an island and we were circling it, never really touched land. Also, the ending of this book was completely pointless. There was no real resolution anywhere, no real consequences faced for anything that happened. Everything was so fluffy and just felt like she's like, I gotta end this book. I have to end this book. I need the characters to be at this point. How do I get from this point where they're at, where they're, you know, there's all this conflict, to this point where I'm like, okay, I'm done. And she's like, I'm just gonna say I'm done. And while I get it, and I wish that so many points in my current novel that I'm working on, that I could just be like, all right, I'm not gonna put any real substance to get from point A to point B. We're just going to point B, okay? And you're just gonna have to deal with it. But I read it, I finished it. So I did end the month with another 5-star read for me, another book that I had been putting off for entirely too long for my liking, especially now after having read the book, and that is The Glacier by Kim Legit. I think her Instagram name is like Kim Too Legit to Quit, so I'm gonna call her Kim Legit. So The Glacier follows, what is her name? I can't remember. Tierney, 16-year-old Tierney, who lives in this kind of like fenced off puritanical sort of like almost a cult-like society. She is entering her grace year, which is when the girls of this society, what is it called, Garner County, when they come of age essentially, and I think it's when they turn 16, and they suddenly have garnered this ability to lure men to sin and attract men to, it's like it says they have the power to lure grown men from their beds, to drive women to madness and jealousy. They believe their very skin emits a powerful aphrodisiac, the potent essence of youth, of a girl on the edge of womanhood. So essentially all that, and then when they turn 16, the girls in the society are banished for a year to this island to basically use up and get rid of their magic. That way they can come back to the county and become proper wives to the men who have basically chosen them right before they leave. So this is a story basically of these girls left to their own devices, and they're all fighting for survival and truth, I guess. And it looks like it touches on so much, like from how basically as women a lot of the time society has structured us and taught us how to view each other as competition, as the enemy, and not even like, it's so ingrained that it almost feels natural to conflict with people, the people who are in this battle with you, for what? The attention of a man, of marriage, to be a wife essentially. And in this case they are using up their magic. They are supposed to just be like these docile women. They are just supposed to produce children, take no pleasure in the process of it. There are instructions on how to experience sex basically, and it's just a very gritty story that made me angry a lot. I was very angry a lot, and it's basically Tierney's personal story of fighting through that, discovering the truth at the root of the grace year and their society and everything they're taught, and discovering herself and love essentially, how she can actually make a difference, not just within amongst the grace year girls, but even back in Garner County with her, even when it comes to like building a future for her sisters and the other women in their community. And I just really enjoyed this book. I knew I'd like it. I had a feeling I'd like it, and it's not even like what I thought it would be. It's described as like a YA, I guess, Handmaid's Tale, which I haven't read, but I've heard a lot of mixed things about The Handmaid's Tale. What I was worried, because like every time you have a book that's like, this is a feminist book, blah blah blah, I'm like, okay, is it like a white feminist book? There's a difference. Feminism and white feminism are two very different things, and I was just worried about like where this fell on the spectrum. But I really enjoyed this book. This is being made into a movie. Elizabeth Banks is working on a movie, so I'm really curious to see how this will be adapted. What was I going to say? Oh, I especially enjoyed this book. It has a similar feel for me personally as Wilder Girls by Rory Power, and so I've started recommending this book for people who, like myself, were really intrigued by the premise of Wilder Girls and like the story of where it could have gone, but feel like Wilder Girls might have like fallen flat for them personally. This has a very similar vibe, has a very similar feel to it. I mean, the base storyline is kind of different, but it has a similar feel, like where this group of girls are separated from society and kind of stuck together and having to survive. Yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed this. Can't wait for the movie. Want more books. I want to read more. This also obviously reminds me a lot of The Year of the Witching, so that's another similar book where we're in these puritanical society and the main character is basically learning like the truth behind that and fighting against that system and everything she's basically been taught and is embedded in her, and when it's done right, you know? So those are the books that I read in January. We're almost finished February, and I'm reading, I think, my 4th book of February. Another great reading month, so I can't wait to talk about those books soonish. But yeah, let me know what books you read in January that you really loved. If you read any of these books, let me know what you think about them. If you have any similar books that you think I might like, let me know. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you like me, feel free to subscribe. All my places are down here so you can follow me and I'll follow you back, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.